The man who had Devyani arrested is U.S. Attorney for Southern District of New York, Preet Bharara, and sources tell headlines today that emails circulating among South Block officials show that Bharara has now come under the scanner for targeting people of Indian origin. On the 5th of December, he announced charges against 25 serving and former Russian diplomats and their spouses for allegedly defrauding Medicaid, an American state-run healthcare program, to obtain about $1.5 million in benefits over a decade. No arrest was made in that case, and Bharara said the case was unlikely to go to trial as the defendants had immunity. The question then is, why was the same procedure not followed in the case of Devyani? Sources have told us that the Indian government feels action against Devyani smacks of ulterior motives. Before spearheading proceedings against Devyani, Bharara had hit the headlines for prosecuting ex-McKinsey MD Rajat Gupta on insider trading charges. In the same case, he also brought down former McKinsey executive Anil Kumar and Intel Capital executive Rajiv Goel. Bharara made ex-Indian internet analyst Sandeep Agarwal plead guilty to providing inside information about pending deals between Microsoft and Yahoo to a portfolio manager at SAC Capital, and has also initiated action against an Indian-American pharmacy owner in Queens. Gaurav, coming back to you, what exactly is the objective? Because a pattern seems to be emerging.
Well, you're spot on there, Padmaja. Preet Bharara, known as the sheriff on the Wall Street. The Wall Street sheriff may be doing a great job at one level. At another level, is there an attempt to specifically target Indians? And is it to appear to be more pious than the Pope, more loyal than the King? That is the question that sources are asking. Whether India takes it up officially with the United States of America or not remains to be seen. But the pattern that you and I were talking about just a short while back, going after Indian diplomats, going after Indian diplomats' children, parking fines for Indian diplomats, body searching them, frisking them at airports. Now, these are courtesies that are extended to diplomats across the world. They are reciprocal. India has extended a large number of other courtesies which are unilateral. But in New York specifically, Indians are being targeted and Indian diplomats are being targeted. The case of the Russian diplomats that sources are pointing out, right. 49 serving and former diplomats of Russia in this particular case that Preet Bharara went after. This is a $1.5 million alleged scam, $1.5 million, which happened over a period of time. Right. Now, while they went after these Russians, none were arrested. And when this question was put to Preet Bharara, why were they not arrested? Both diplomats and consular officers, he said because they enjoyed diplomatic immunity.
Absolutely. In fact, Gaurav, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Just a minute, because former diplomat Kamal Sibal is also with us on the phone line. Sir, do you think that it will provide a measure of relief to Devyani Khobragade now that she has been moved out from the consulate by the Indian government to the UN mission?
Well, I knew that this was on the cards. But the Americans have to accept this, and if I don't have the information whether they have accepted this transfer from the Consulate General to PMI, if they have, then certainly this gives Devyani additional protection, because she will then be entitled to full diplomatic immunity, and therefore she would not be liable to be arrested as she was earlier. And also, based on this, the Indian side can ask the U.S. State Department to quash the case against her because she now enjoys full diplomatic immunity. Now, what I mean to say is that if the United States has accepted this transfer, which means they've accepted that she now has full diplomatic immunity, and this could be the basis for withdrawing charges against her, and of course she can be called back or whatever else. That will depend on us. So this provides a way to solve the problem if, as I said, the United States government has gone along with this decision.
Mr. Sibal, also, do you see a complete duplicity when it comes to the case of Devyani and other Russian diplomats that we're just breaking, the news of which you're just breaking on our channel? You've got Russian diplomats involved in a multi-million-dollar scam, yet they were given the benefit of the immunity that they enjoy. The same wasn't extended to Devyani Khobragade.
this is there in my article this morning in Hindustan Times. I had brought this point out, that in that case there was a considerable loss to the U.S. exchequer, and in this case there is not a penny worth of loss to the U.S. exchequer, and still they have taken extremely harsh decisions against Devyani. I've just read the charge sheet of the U.S. Department of State against her. You know, it is shocking that it's actually the U.S. State Department that has moved against Devyani. The case has been filed by the United States government. This is done willfully, and the idea is to make an example of her. And they have ignored the political dimensions of it. This is really arrogant and provocative, because if it was done by local authorities disregarding the views of the State Department and acting on their own, because these attorneys have considerable powers of their own, all right, one could have said that these are the fault lines in the U.S. justice system through which our Deputy Consul General has fallen, because an overzealous attorney has gone ahead and done this.
Right.
This is totally in connivance between the authorities in New York and the State Department. And this is puzzling as to why, when the relationship has been improving, they thought that they could do this to an Indian diplomat and a senior Indian diplomat and get away with it, and then pretend as if they should not and will not affect their bilateral relations. Of course it will.
Okay.
So it is very unclear as to what are their motivations, because even in the worst case scenario, for a moment, we accept that she has submitted documents, not herself, but her maid has submitted documents which have been approved by her.
Okay.
Which show that she didn't quite correctly reflect what she was going to pay her ultimately. But there is such a disproportion between this and treating her as a common criminal.
Right.
And if you look, and we have looked at the U.S. Prison manuals or whatever they are called, there are 4 degrees of treatment which are given to people who have been arrested. And the worst is the 4th one, which he has been subjected to, which is normally given to hardened criminals, drug addicts, those who are susceptible to commit suicide, etc., etc. So this again is shocking. This is in violation of their own manuals.
Absolutely, but this time India has not agreed to being bullied around by the US. They are standing up. We'll also talk ahead in the bulletin about what further India can do. Thank you very much, Mr. Kanwal Sibal, former Foreign Secretary, for joining us with your expert view on the developing situation.